2. Define life and living organisms. Find out various characteristics of living organisms. Understand cellular structure of living organisms. Find out organization of living organisms. Study process of metabolism in living organisms. Study how do living organisms grow. Identify what is consciousness. Find out movements in living organisms. Study reproduction in various living organisms. And understand diversity in the living world. What is living? Life is a characteristic that distinguishes objects that have self-sustaining biological processes from those that do not, either because such functions have ceased or else because they lack such functions and are classified as inanimate. Life is unique, complex cellular organization of molecules, expressing it through chemical reactions which lead to growth, development, responsiveness, adaptation, and reproduction. Plants and animals both are living, therefore, biology deals with the study of both plants, botany, and animals, zoology. Virus is intermittent link between living and non-living. Viruses consist of only a protein coat and an inner core of nucleic acid. Viruses can reproduce only inside living cells. Viruses can be crystallized and kept in a bottle for years and still infect their host cells. Characters of living organisms. An organism is any living system. Example, animal, plant, fungus, or microorganism. All the living things are called organisms. All living organisms share following basic characteristics: cellular structure, organization, energy, homeostasis, metabolism, growth, consciousness, movements, variations, adaptations, reproduction, irritability, evolution, interactions, emergent properties, lifespan and life cycle, and death. Characters of living organisms. Cellular structure. Each living being has a distinct individuality. It cannot be broken into two or more independent parts. The body of a living being is made of one or more cells. Cells are considered to be a structural and functional unit of life. The cells are made of protoplasm or living matter. All the body functions and properties of life are due to protoplasm. Characters of living organisms. Organization. Living beings have an internal hierarchy of parts where smaller parts cooperate to form larger one. The larger ones a still larger part, while all the still larger parts are organized to form the individual. Because of this organization, living beings are also called organisms. Characters of living organisms. Energy. Living being constantly requires energy, not only to perform various activities of the body, but also to overcome entropy or tendency to randomness. The source of energy is food. It is required by every cell of the body. Characters of living organisms. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is the property of a system, either open or closed, that regulates its internal environment and tends to maintain a stable, constant condition. Or we can say that, as external environment do not have much impact on the internal environment, as the living beings have a self-regulated system to adjust and maintain the internal environment. The phenomenon is called homeostasis. Characters of living organisms. Metabolism. A large number of chemical reactions are going on in the body of a living being. The sum of all the chemical reactions occurring in an organism is called metabolism. Metabolism has two main types: catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism involves breakdown of complex organic materials into simpler ones. Anabolism involves building up of complex organic substances from simpler ones. The differences between catabolism and anabolism are: characters of living organisms. Growth. Growth is a vital characteristic of living organisms. Growth occurs when anabolism is higher than catabolism. All organisms grow, develop, and reproduce. Growth results in an increase in size, weight, and synthesis of new protoplasm. Characters of living organisms. Consciousness. Consciousness is awareness of the surroundings and responding to external stimuli. The ability of an organism or organ to respond to external stimuli is called sensitivity. Characters of living organisms. Movements. Movement is of two types: movement of parts and movement of whole body or locomotion. Animals perform both types of movements, while plants show only movement of parts. Some movements occur due to purely internal forces. They are autonomic or spontaneous movements, while some movements occur in response to an external stimulus. They are known as paratonic or induced movements. Characters of living organisms. Variation. Genetic material undergoes mutations and reshuffling of genes. This causes variations. Variations are so abundant that no two individuals of the same race are exactly same. Characters of living organisms. Adaptation. They are variations which help organisms to modify themselves according to changes in environment and specific requirement of their surroundings. Example: snow leopards have stocky bodies, thick fur, and small and round ears, which help to minimize the heat loss, while leaves of cactus are reduced to thorns so that surface area for transpiration is reduced. Night-blooming flowers are adapted as they are whitish in color and scented to attract moths and other insects, pollinators. Birds have wings for flight, boat-shaped body, beak, pneumatic bones, and feathers. Mimicry is close resemblance with surroundings or other organisms. Example: flowers of Ophrys muscifera show mimicry. Characters of living organisms. Reproduction. Young ones grow and become mature. They develop the faculty to produce young ones of their own type. Life comes from pre-existing life. Characters of living organisms. Coordination. Different parts of the body of a living being cooperate with one another for the functioning of the whole. Example: heart pumps blood to all parts of the body, lungs provide oxygen, digestive system, nutrients, nerves and hormones, information, muscles, movements, bones, support, etc. Characters of living organisms. Irritability. Irritability is the faculty of responding to a stimulus. It is the property of protoplasm and is shown by all organisms, both plants and animals. Animals show quick response to a stimulus because they possess nervous system. Plants show slow response. Example: bending of shoot towards light. Characters of living organisms. Evolution. Evolution is formation of new species from the pre-existing ones. Evolution occurs due to accumulation of variations. Characters of living organisms. Interaction. Interactions occur among the levels of organization within organisms and between organisms and their external environments. The levels of interaction between organisms and their environment are those of populations, communities, ecosystems, and the biosphere. Characters of living organisms. Emergent properties. The appearance of new characteristics at a given level of organization is called emergence. Characters of living organisms. Life cycle. Each individual passes through a definite life cycle of birth, growth, maturation, reproduction, aging, and death. This is completed in a definite lifespan ranging from 1 day to several years. Characters of living organisms. Death. After a period of time, each living being dies. Death occurs naturally due to wear and tear. Diversity in the living world. The biodiversity is the number and types of organisms present on the earth. Every organism, whether plant or animal, is unique in itself. There is a wide diversity in the flora, plants, and fauna animals in the world. The diversity we see today is the result of 3.5 billion years of organic evolution. During the course of this evolution, several species vanished from the surface of the earth and become extinct. With such a vast number of organisms, both living and extinct, it becomes impossible to study every one of them at individual level. Did you know? Huxley in 1868 said protoplasm is the physical basis of life. Lamarck in 1809 said nobody can have life if its constituent parts are not cellular. Tremblay was first to study regeneration in Hydra. Summary. Let us summarize what we have learned. In the world, there are two types of structures, living and non-living. Living world has vast range of variety. Living organisms and many non-living things share three properties: complexity, movement, and response to stimulation. The virus is a lifeless particle by itself, but it becomes active and multiplies rapidly inside a living cell. The smallest unit of life is cell. While the highest level of biological organization is biosphere, living beings are complex entities. All living organisms share some basic characteristics: cellular structure, organization, energy, homeostasis, metabolism, growth, consciousness, movements, variations, adaptations, reproduction, irritability, evolution, interactions, emergent properties, lifespan and life cycle, and death. Homeostasis is maintenance of favorable internal environment of living beings. Changes in structure and function of every living beings with age are called development. Growth, development, and functioning of living body is due to metabolism. A living organism can be differentiated from a non-living thing on the basis of its ability for reproduction. Night-blooming flowers are adapted as they are whitish in color and scented to attract moths and other insects, pollinators. Birds have wings for flight, boat-shaped body, beak, pneumatic bones and feathers. Mimicry is close resemblance with surroundings and other organisms. Example, flowers of Ophrys muscifera show mimicry. Living organisms interact and function with each other at many different levels. These different levels are cellular, organizational, and population levels. Able to identify taxonomy categories, understand species, understand genus, find the types of family, understand types of order, understand class, understand phylum, study about kingdom, find out various taxonomical aids, understand how to make a herbarium, find out about various botanical gardens, understand what is museum, find out about various zoological park, and understand what is key. Taxonomy. Naming and identifying organisms began with Greeks and Romans. Aristotle classified organisms into groups such as horses, birds, and oaks. He said that living things were either plants or animals. In the Middle Ages, organisms were described using long Latin descriptions. John Ray, 1627 to 1705, argued that each organism should have a set name, otherwise men cannot see and record accurately. Polynomials were a string of Latin words and phrases consisting of up to 12 or more words. This system was cumbersome and confusing. In the 1750s, the Swedish biologist Carlos Linnaeus developed the binomial system. Binomials are two-part names. First word is genus name. Second word is specific epithet. The two words are written in italics. Together they form the scientific name. Example, Mangifera indica, mango. Taxonomic categories. Aristotle classified life into 14 groups. Example, mammals, birds, etc. Ray grouped animals and plants according to how he thought they were related. Modern taxonomists use the following classification: species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, domain. Taxonomists use a hierarchical system to classify organisms. Species. According to John Ray, about 1700, a species is a group of individuals that can breed with one another and produce fertile offspring. Ernst Mayr, 1940s, proposed the biological species concept. Genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison to species of other genera. A genus term comes from Latin genus, descent, family, type, gender, or from Greek genos, race, plus stock, which is kin. We can say that genera are aggregates of closely related species. Family. Family has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. A family term comes from Latin familia, which means familial. Example, we can say potato, tomato, and brinjal belong to Solanaceae family, while lion, leopard, tiger, etc. come under family Felidae. Order. A group of closely related families having certain common characters. An order term comes from Latin ordo, series, row, order. Example, plant families Solanaceae and Convolvulaceae are included in the order Polemoniales, while animal families like Felidae and Cancidae come under order Carnivore. Class. A group of closely related orders having certain common characters. A class term comes from Latin classes, a class or order, sort, kind. Example, class Mammalia. Phylum. In biology, a phylum is a taxonomic rank below kingdom and above class. A group of closely related classes having certain common characters. In botany, phylum is equivalent to division. Kingdom. The kingdom or regnum is a taxonomic rank in either the highest rank or the rank below domain. Each kingdom is divided into smaller groups called phyla. A system of 6 kingdoms is Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, Protista, Archaea, Bacteria, while some consider only 5 kingdoms: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, Animalia. Taxonomic aids. Storehouses of information and specimens which can help in identification and classification of organisms are called taxonomic aids. There are several taxonomic aids like herbaria, botanical gardens, museums, and zoological parks. Herbarium. Herbarium is a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dry, pressed, and preserved on sheets. Further, these sheets are arranged according to a universally accepted system of classification. These specimens, along with their description on herbarium sheets, become a storehouse or repository for future use. The herbarium sheets also carry a label providing information about date and place of collection, English, local, and botanical names, family, collector's name, etc. These specimens may be whole plants or plant parts. These will usually be in a dried form, mounted on a sheet, but depending upon the material may also be kept in alcohol or other preservatives. The specimens in a herbarium are often used as reference material in describing plant taxa. Some specimens may be types. Botanical gardens. A place where a variety of plants are grown, primarily for scientific or educational reasons, but are normally open to the public and include ornamental plants from around the world. These specialized gardens have collections of living plants for reference. Plant species in these gardens are grown for identification purposes, and each plant is labeled indicating its botanical scientific name and its family. The famous botanical gardens are at Royal Botanical Garden, Kew, England. The famous Indian Botanical Research Institute, Lucknow, India. Museum. Biological museums have collections of preserved plant and animal specimens for study and reference. Biological museums are generally set up in educational institutes such as schools and colleges. Specimens are preserved in the containers or jars in preservative solutions. Plant and animal specimens may also be preserved as dry specimens. Insects are preserved in insect boxes after collecting, killing, and pinning. Large animals like birds and mammals are usually stuffed and preserved. Museums often have collections of skeletons of animals too. Zoological Park. These are the places where wild animals are kept in protected environments under human care and which enable us to learn about their food habits and behavior. All animals in zoo are provided, as far as possible, the conditions similar to their natural habitats. Children love visiting these parks, commonly called zoos. Key. Key is another taxonomical aid used for identification of plants and animals based on the similarities. The keys are based on the contrasting characters, generally in pair called couplet. It represents the choice made between two opposite options. This results in acceptance of only one and rejection of the other. Each statement in the key is called a lead. Separate taxonomic keys are required for each taxonomic category such as family, genus, and species for identification purposes. Keys are generally analytical in nature. Flora, manuals, monographs, and catalogues are some other means of recording descriptions. They also help in correct identification. Flora contains the actual account of habitat and distribution of plants of a given area. These provide the index to the plant species found in a particular area. Manuals are useful in providing information for identification of names of species found in an area. Monographs contain information on any one taxon. Did you know? Acetabularia is the largest plant cell ranging from 6 to 10 centimeters. E. coli is a bacteria having a size of 5 μm. Tallest tree is Eucalyptus regnans and is 114 meter tall. Sequoia sempervirens, redwood tree, is about 11 meter tall and is found in California. Elephant is largest land animal. Summary. Let us summarize what we have learned. In order to facilitate the study of kinds and diversity of organisms, biologists have evolved certain rules and principles for identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. The branch of knowledge dealing with these aspects is referred to as taxonomy. The taxonomic studies of various species of plants and animals are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in general for knowing our bioresources and their diversity. The basics of taxonomy like identification, naming, and classification of organisms are universally evolved under international codes. An organism represents or occupies a place or position in the system of classification. There are many categories or ranks and are generally referred to as taxonomic categories or taxa. All the categories constitute a taxonomic hierarchy. Taxonomists have developed a variety of taxonomic aids to facilitate identification, naming, and classification of organisms. These studies are carried out from the actual specimens which are collected from the field and preserved as referrals in the form of herbaria, museums, and in botanical gardens and zoological parks. It requires special techniques for collection and preservation of specimens in herbaria and in museums. Live specimens, on the other hand, of plants and animals are found in botanical gardens and zoological parks. Taxonomists also prepare and disseminate information through manuals and monographs for further taxonomic studies. Taxonomic keys are tools that help in identification based on characteristics.